I think midlife and later is a very challenging time for women. I think we're marginalised in healthcare, we're underfunded, under-researched, not well understood. Physically, we're not small men.
Who is Liz Earle?
Right now, she is a very recent #1 Sunday Times bestselling author, latest book, How to Age. But before that, and I think the lead up to that, is serial entrepreneur, brand founder in skincare, the Liz Earle Beauty Company. But I sold that back in 2010.
There's so much to unravel there and to almost thank you for. There's a role model piece there. What are you finding most interesting about the longevity side of things within the wellness sector?
It's not so much about age span, it's about health span. So yes, we're living longer. When you look statistically, if you look at women, for example, our average age in the UK might be, say, 83 years. But our health span is declining. So our health span as women is around 70 years. And that means being in pain, being immobile, losing our cognitive function. Well, I don't really want to end the last 12 to 15 years of my life like that. Anti-aging, I hate that term. We're all aging. If you're not aging, you're not living. So for me, it's about pro-aging. Everything I do and everything I talk about and the way I want women particularly to think about aging is pro-aging. We want to live well. We want to live longer. We want it to be positive.
Liz Earle, welcome.
Thank you.
You know how much I've been looking forward to this conversation.
It's been a long time coming, so thank you for having me.
Here we are. Thank you. Who is Liz Earle?
Depends what day you ask me. Right now, she is a very recent #1 Sunday Times bestselling author, latest book, How to Age. But before that, and I think the lead up to that, is serial entrepreneur, brand founder, probably best known for making face cream. That was my biggest journey in skincare, the Liz Earle Beauty Company. But I sold that back in 2010. But it's got so big, it's kind of surpassed almost a lot of other things. But I have a humanitarian charity. I've been a founding member of regenerative farming. I advocate for menopause, for health, for women in midlife. I encourage and advocate for older women particularly. And I guess that's my generation. I'm in my 60s now. And for me, it's looking after the sisterhood in the broadest sense, whether that's from business or wellness or education.
As a dad to 2 daughters, there's
Great.
so much to unravel there and to almost thank you for. There's a role model piece there.
Oh, thanks.
And can we bring the entrepreneurial piece up? Because it feels like you were ahead of your time, in context of less than 2% VC funding goes to female founders.
Yeah.
And I want to take you back to that kind of Liz Earle beauty journey, but of course then became quite multifaceted.
Yeah.
And any experiences you had where you did feel like there was almost sort of a male chauvinistic, or whether there was more of a glass ceiling element because that lack of self-belief and backing yourself is also something I've noticed that certain women have got. Where did you sit with that?
That's really interesting, isn't it? So my background, I began actually as a writer, as a journalist, writing about beauty and well-being, before well-being was a thing. I mean, this is going back 40 years or so. And from there, for writing for magazines, I went into publishing. I was on the launch show of This Morning, the big daytime TV show in the UK, which I just kind of fell into. A lot of my journey in life and in business has been doors opening and just being kind of very forward going and going, yeah, okay, let's go through here and see what happens. And it was when I was doing all of that in fact, my great friend at the time, who had been working in the beauty industry, said, listen, women know you. They know you from TV, from your writing. They trust you. You know about beauty. Let's do a skincare brand. And to be really honest with you, I thought at the time, that's way too commercial for me. I'm a researcher, a writer. I don't want to become gamekeeper turned poacher. So it's not for me. And she said, don't worry, it'll be a side hustle. Be fine. So anyway, famous last words. It ended up totally taking over everything. We built literally from the team of the two of us into what became one of Britain's leading, biggest independent beauty brands before we sold it. And it just took off. And for me, it kind of took me away from my early passions. But boy, did I learn so much from that journey. But I guess I'm not the classic entrepreneur in that sense, because I didn't set out to have a best-selling skincare line. That was not my driving goal. when it was presented to me as an opportunity, as I say, that door opened and it was like, great, let's go. Let's see where we go with this. And let's go global and let's, develop lots of different brands and line extensions. We launched on QVC, on home shopping at a time when nobody was really doing that. We had really expensive upmarket boutiques like Brands in South Molton Street. And I remember the beauty director at Vogue saying, how come you can be on QVC shopping channel as the biggest brand and be bought by A-listers at Brands, fashion store? So I think we were one of the first kind of multi-platform brands. And we also really invented a new category called masstige, which is the bringing together of mass market, because before we were there, really, you went to a supermarket and you bought stuff off the shelf, Pond's and Olay and the big brands. Or you went to a department store and you had to approach a counter and go up to one of the big sort of legacy brands.
Sure.
So, we kind of we democratized, if you like, skincare, which is quite fun looking back on that.
And you put your name on it. So it's interesting that there is a side hustle, but actually, did that in any way mean that part of you really wanted to make sure it succeeded?
I think it just felt like the obvious thing at the time because my name was known. And we played around with lots of different ideas. And in the end, we just kept coming back to Liz Earle. And it's an interesting thing because when you are a brand founder and your name is on the tin, there are pros and cons. We used to turn up to meetings together, and my friend and business partner, Kim, and I, we were equal partners in the business, but we would walk into a meeting. I would be the one who would be sat down. She would be asked for the coffee. It was assumed that she was like the sidekick. And, because when you're very forward facing, but you also get all the flack.
I was just going to say.
And on social media now, especially, you have to be quite brave because everybody assumes that you are behind every decision, you're behind every, delayed parcel or error. And it's you really are very visible. And I'm not sure. Would I recommend it to brand founders starting out? I think you have to be brave to do it, to be honest.
Good advice. Do you do any mentoring? Do you do it like giving back piece? Because we last saw each other at a lunch,
social justice,
which was very much part of giving back. That
totally.
was how can we help?
Well, I sit on the board now, and I love it. And social justice has always been a strong thread for me. So when I exited from the Liz Earle Beauty Company, the first thing I did was use a chunk of that money to set up a humanitarian charity, Live Twice. And that is basically about giving back. It's about opportunity to others, living twice, because I think in life, so many of us could have taken wrong turns. And, but for the grace of God, go many of us. So I think giving people opportunity, whether that's opportunity for education or rehabilitation or welfare or working in developing countries or working, in the UK with people who are less advantaged is hugely rewarding. So I love that whole aspect of fighting for the underdog. I think I do have a strong sense of justice running through me. And, I advocate and campaign on lots of different issues, from gender inequality in healthcare, for example, to obviously being female and having a lot of inequality and issues that we fight on lots of different levels.
You lit up then. There was some serious passion that came through.
I love having a platform that can advocate and hopefully bring about change, because that's the point, isn't it? And I think as we go through life, you have to think, what is it for? Why am I here? And when I'm writing about wellness and well-being now, a lot of what comes through that is purpose, because purpose is such a motivator, and it's the elixir of life. It's the tonic. It's what gets us up in the morning. And I think I don't want to end my life and look back and think, well, what was all that about? Why was I here? Did it matter that I was here? Did I make a difference to anybody? And it doesn't matter whether it's to one person or a million people. I think we all have an obligation when we're here to lift others as we rise and to leave a beneficial footprint behind.
I love that. The conversation we had when we first sat down, where I brought my daughters in to the conversation, and that role model piece. Now, I just want to say to you, that's how I see you. That there's someone there that's got so much lived experience and has used your purpose and also stayed relevant. You've just written another book, which is one of the reasons why we couldn't film until now.
I know, super busy.
Where's this? I'm almost answering the question I'm asking you here. That purpose that fulfills you, is that where the energy comes from? Because you just I feel like there's so much energy in you.
I feel very fortunate because I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. And I love podcasting. And when I do my podcasts, I am talking one-to-one like we are here with world-class leading experts, usually academics and medics, and people at the forefront of their research, particularly into healthcare. And that's such a privileged position to be in, to have these great brains, one-to-one for an hour, and you can't fail but be infused by that, and then translate that information and bring it into everyday life in a way that is not complicated and can actually be understood. Because they say it takes about 17 years to go from the lab, say from bench work, to the bedside where it's actually being used in practice. Well, I'm literally about to turn 63. I haven't got 17 years to wait before we can find out those amazing life-changing things that are going to make me feel more energized and more energetic. So I guess I'm quite hungry for information, and I want to go and grab as much as I can. And then once you know it and have it, it just bubbles up within me. I just feel that I have to share it.
And there's a longevity piece there. No, your enthusiasm is infectious. So I like that because there's a selfish element actually there. I want to know, because it benefits me. And then, of course, that relentless drive shares it.
Yeah.
So in context of longevity, which is another place we met through Jim Mellon's Longevity Forum, where you were doing a talk. And Jim's been on this program. I find him fascinating to talk with. What are you finding most interesting about the longevity side of things within the wellness sector?
Well, for me, I talked to a lot of longevity researchers. And it's not so much about age span, it's about health span. So yes, we're living longer. When you look statistically, if you look at women, for example, our average age in the UK might be, say, 83 years, which sounds quite good, and that's getting pushed out. But our health span is declining. So our health span as women is around 70 years. So we can expect 12 or 13 years in poor health. And that means being in pain, being immobile, losing our cognitive function. Well, I don't really want to end the last 12 to 15 years of my life like that. No. So my focus is on health span, living well for longer. It's not about living longer, it's about living better and finding ways that we can do that. And I think what's really exciting me at the moment is the emphasis on mitochondrial research. Because every longevity researcher I talk to, and gerontologist and medical sort of advocate, is saying it really comes down to mitochondria. These little tiny organelles in our cells, virtually every cell of the body has these mitochondria, and they control everything. They control our energy cycle, our ATP, our brain energy, our body energy, and our DNA repair. And if we can hack into our mitochondria, then we are literally hacking into our basic cellular biology, which is enabling us to thrive and ward off degenerative disease and dysfunction and thrive in later life. And that is incredibly empowering to think that we can do this.
It's fascinating listening to you. Something that scares me, and again, I keep bringing my two daughters into play, but to reference that for context, the amount of women that don't embrace aging and fight it and have all sorts of procedures, and we could name so many different things that in any way are fighting aging, whereas you embrace it. And
well, up to a point, yes. I'm still going to use my skincare and put some lipstick on. But I think it's you're fighting a losing game if you. It's not about looking younger for longer. And if you actually go back to our cellular level, if your cells start to behave in a younger way, that's all your cells. That includes skin cells. So, for example, the simple act of looking at daylight first thing in the morning is going to prime your mitochondria into producing anti-inflammatory chemicals and things like nitric oxide that can protect the skin and actually signal fibroblasts to make more collagen and elastin. So you're going to get that natural glow anyway. So it's about chasing health and cellular health, which is then automatically going to make your skin glow, make your hair grow thicker and your nails be stronger. Sure. So you're kind of creating your own beauty from within. And I think that's where it all stems from. I've always believed that beauty is a two-way approach. I've always written about food, nutrition. We build skin cells by giving them the best ingredients. And the beauty piece is just the icing on the cake, really.
You gave an example there that the morning daylight's free. Not necessarily always in England. Yeah, in the context of...
Well, we don't get much sun, but actually the wavelengths that I'm talking about, things like red and near-infrared light, that is up before UV. So before even the sun is high in the sky, we're benefiting from these ultraviolet wavelengths and near-infrared, far-infrared, similar to the red light you find in red light face masks. It's not as strong, But, we get that for free when the sun is coming up, which is why early morning is so important. We also get it at sunset. And if you can't get outside, just open a window, brush your teeth in front of an open window. It's really simple little hacks like that can move the needle on the dial.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, people will be watching you now. If they're not listening, they can see you. You just said you're 63, and people are going to be thinking, how do you look so good? And is there a morning routine? Is there any sort of non-negotiable element? Because there's probably different things you do, but are there certain things that you would say, well, I would absolutely always do this?
My morning routine starts the night before. So it's about prioritizing sleep. I used to think that sleep was just passive. You just flop into bed. Actually, it was all about, let's be driven and let's make sure we stay up late and we get that deadline finished, that piece of work. Now I know that that's not.
That's the hustle culture entrepreneur that you used to be, right? So there's a maturity that's come from.
Yeah, and I love that with age, because, with age, there is maturity and wisdom and that sense of having to pace yourself, because you know that you can take a breath and step back. And even now I say to my small publishing team, did you get a good night's sleep? And if you didn't, then you better go home and catch up, because I don't want you making poor decisions on my watch. Sleep is an absolute business asset, and we need to prioritize it, move it up your to-do list. But we do that by making sure that we get to bed at a reasonable time. We are having a good sleep hygiene routine. We're not doom scrolling endlessly at night. Please don't sleep with your phone beside the bed, because I defy anybody not to wake up and look at it, and then you are instantly drawn into the scroll, the WhatsApps, the emails. I'll just check the toxic newsfeed, and you haven't even woken up, you haven't even come to. But actually, more importantly, the light signals that are given off from our screens, that shortwave blue light, is spiking things like cortisol. It's not setting our brain up in the right way. So I say to my kids and to everybody I work with, and anybody who'll listen, frankly, sky before screens. So if you can, just get a digital alarm clock, one that doesn't tick, so doesn't keep you awake, but don't wake up with your phone. Get up, either go outside or open your window and have that sky, that real daylight, before you put your contact lenses in, before your glasses, and just take a moment to pause, breathe, and then rehydrate. So the first thing I do, absolutely, I have a water filter jug in my bathroom, filtered water, pinch of sea salt, so rebalancing my electrolytes, getting that little spurt of energy before I reach for the coffee, before it's the caffeine fix, before anything else. Because we've been in bed for hours. We haven't been drinking through the night like we do normally during the day.
Of course.
We wake up, we're dehydrated. We need to re-energize, and our cells need that cellular energy, with a few little minerals added. Maybe you're using electrolytes or that sea salt just to help that energy exchange within the cells. And that's why we get more energized. And then you crack on with the day.
So interesting. This is a slightly unfair question, but I'll relate it to my own daughters. But of course, I know we just talked about GCSEs now and so on.
5 kids.
So the unbelievable popularity around Sephora and the skincare now in young girls, like my girls were getting excited about going to Westfield and going to the Sephora, if you like, rather than the clothes shops. They're buying all the skincare stuff, but they're doing exactly what you just said. However bad that sounds on me as a parent, managing that whole use of the phone going into the evening.
They're doing that, are they?
Well,
they're switching it off.
We're trying to manage it. So you rather than take the device away and then take the control, it's like, right, keep your phone. I'm trusting you to not go on it late and not be using it late. And so my point being, I'm not sure if they are, but I know tons of kids that are.
Oh my
and
gosh,
where I'm going with it is
this
is such a invaluable, from the queen of wellness and skincare knowledge, if you like. Well, it's like if you're trying to make your skin look good at a time when you're getting breakouts and so on, they're doing exactly what you just said to not do.
There have been studies looking at the impact of this shortwave blue light on skin and disrupting the skin's own microbiome. We're all very used to the fact that we have our own gut internal microbiome, but the skin has its own microbiome, and it runs on light. We have light receptors in the skin. And we disrupt that. And, looking at things like the rise in periodontal dermatitis and acne, for example, if you want clearer skin, do not sit with your phone like this, particularly after dark, because your skin, like the rest of the body, has a circadian rhythm. And we have evolved to get up with the sun, be active and produce all our cortisol and our dopamine and our hormones and everything to get on with the day. The minute the sun goes down and it's dark, we need to be winding down. We need to be producing melatonin to improve our sleep, We need to be just calming everything, letting our body regulate and repair, and that includes our skin. So if your girls want glowing skin, one of the fundamentals would be to encourage a good night's sleep and come off their screens a bit earlier.
Wish me luck. It's so frustrating because it feels like there's a culture, and maybe we could bring social media into this, because, and I'm going to bring your podcast in as a force for good, knowledge, information coming from lived experience and the amazing people you get to meet and then share. But the sort of quick fix, if you like, that social media makes out, that you can do shortcuts, you can get rich quick, you can just put this cream on and then you'll glow like Liz Earle. Well, actually, the reality is there's all these things you're not doing your exercise, you're not getting the sunlight. I'm not just talking about my girls. And then they're getting frustrated. Because they're not putting the work in.
It's about consistency. Consistency matters more, actually, I think, than intensity. So, I do a bit of gym most days. It might be a fast walk or just a few weights or something. And even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, it is that consistency. The body loves consistency. It loves routine. It runs, as I say, on this 24-hour biological clock. And that affects every cellular process in the body. So if we want to set ourselves up to succeed in the best way possible, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, we need to work with our own body's biology and not fight it. And doing those small routines, the body's a creature of habit. It loves routines. It loves a sleep routine. I try and get up at the same time every day, even at weekends. And it doesn't work to think, well, I'll really, stress all week and I'll stay up late and then I'll have a couple of really great lines at the weekend and play catch up. It doesn't work like that.
No.
So even though...
It's really refreshing to hear you say that.
Well, even though I love a lie-in, it's like I'm still at the weekend getting up at the same time and going out and get some daylight. I might then make a cup of tea and, grab a pile of papers or whatever and go back to bed and do some reading. But I'm awake and I'm up. I'm not just letting myself stay asleep until, 10, 11 o'clock.
I'm the same as that, actually. So I wake up at the same time, mindset, habit built, but I can slow the pace down at the weekend, but I still end up working and doing stuff. Entrepreneur, right?
Do. I mean, you never switch off. And, when you do something you love, that's also the passion, isn't it? It doesn't feel like work. I mean, it is work, obviously, because there are deadlines and you have pressures and problems and you have to solve those things. But I think we're very fortunate if we are doing things that really light that spark.
What is your favourite thing to do? Is that you're so multifaceted, but what is the thing that lights you up the most?
Well, I mean, it's cheesy, isn't it? But I love spending time with my family. I mean, that is just like, to hug everybody is just irreplaceable. But outside of that, I love the research. I love going down a rabbit hole, and put me down a mitochondrial rabbit hole any day and I'm happy as a clam. And it's just so fascinating because I'm not a medic and I'm not an academic, I'm not a scientist. But I have access to people who are. And I think one of the things that I do, hopefully reasonably well, is communicate. So I can go in and talk to these people and say, listen, you're going to have to explain this really simply to me because I need to understand this so I can then communicate it. And I think maybe that works because I'm not talking a scientific language. I'm trying to make things simple and accessible for every day. There is complex science behind why we should go out and look at daylight. But I can break it down and say, just open a window because it'll make you feel better.
But that makes it relatable. So if a scientist or a professor potentially tried to explain the benefits of what you just said and articulate it in a way, they could lose me. Whereas you make it feel real, you make me visualize it, and then I can take that into my own practice. And if I'm not already doing it, I might do it tomorrow.
Well, I hope so. I think, one of the great joys of my work, and particularly with social media, social media has pros and cons, and it can be... It's a difficult beast to tame, and I wouldn't say that I tamed it at all, but I think getting direct messages and comments from women who say, you have saved my life, you have changed my life. And that was because I did a lot of the early work on menopause. This is going back 10 years when people even I shied away of using the word menopause. I didn't want to be associated with it because it felt like I was slipping into decrepitude and frailty, and I didn't associate with that. But the more I researched it and the more I realised the healthcare injustice and the poor information for women and how they were being so let down by, unfortunately, the medical profession, as was then. It's getting a little bit better now. I just felt that I had to become a champion for it. And that did change a lot of real women's lives.
With your background in skincare, how do you feel about the industry of anti-aging?
Anti-aging, I hate that term. Interestingly, even when I had a skincare brand, we never used it. I just felt instinctively it was wrong. Anti is very negative, and we're all aging. If you're not aging, you're not living. So for me, it's about pro-aging. Everything I do and everything I talk about, and the way I want women particularly to think about aging, is pro-aging. We want to live well. We want to live longer. We want it to be positive. And I'd love to start a pro-aging revolution, a real manifesto here for midlife women.
You lit up then. The passion came out. What would you say is your greatest achievement? And I'm going to remove family from that because,
Okay,
of course, because just listening to them, the campaigning, the awareness, MBE, exited entrepreneur, they're a best-selling author. What would you say is the greatest achievement?
I think it probably is talking about hormonal health and menopause and health in the broader sense, inspiring women that it's not downhill. I can sit here with you and genuinely say, in my 60s, I'm fitter, stronger, healthier, happier than any other decade in my life. Definitely in my 40s and 50s. And why can't that upward trajectory continue? We've been sold the narrative, which is wrong. Everything in a way that women have been told about aging is wrong. It's not downhill. That's not an inevitable decline if we know what to do. And women should be celebrated. We should be surrounding ourselves with strong role models. Your girls need strong, inspirational women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, I look to people like Martha Stewart, who's in her mid-80s and reinventing herself and working with rappers and comedy shows in the US and thinking, well, this is phenomenal. I used to watch you baking cakes, 30 years ago. And look at that evolution. And, she looks amazing too. But I think more importantly, she's also giving back. I mean, I think that spell in prison probably was quite a good thing, actually, in hindsight.
What experiences?
Not that I'd like to go there, obviously.
You mentioned the word evolution there. AI.
Yeah.
How has that impacted all the different, because of course with research, which is clearly a passion of yours, and people like Jim Mellon, who I get to speak to, I met him last week, and just some of the advancements there. But in your sphere of influence and the people you're talking to, where are the advancements being made there that are going to help in the future?
I think the medical use of AI is phenomenal. I was at a lecture actually only last night at the Royal College of Medicine, looking at diagnostically what will happen and the role of doctors and medics, and that they will not be replaced, but they will definitely be able to work better for their patients. They will have more access to information. We will be able to feed in more personalised data. Which, as long as it's carefully controlled and regulated, that's obviously the key thing, isn't it? How much of our personal information do we feel safe enough to give away? But certainly for me as a researcher, it's a great way of enhancing the accuracy of my research, because I can feed in all these meta-analysis and I can say, come up with a summary and, who's the key researcher, in Japan or Russia or wherever that I might not have heard of that's looking at this, and then bring that into the mix. So I think AI, it's a tool, isn't it? And it depends how well you can use it. And if you can interrogate AI and ask it the right questions, I think it can be phenomenal for increasing your scope of research and your pool of knowledge. But you have to know what to ask it. Yeah. And it gets stuff wrong. You have to know enough about your subject to go, hang on a minute, whoever, Claude or whoever you are, this is just not true. And then it'll go, oh, yes, okay, no, you're right. Let's look at that study instead.
Yeah, in my own microclimate, I've had that. It could be researching you, and I've done my research, and I'm thinking, well, actually,
I know
what else might I not know? And then it throws something up. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's. Oh yeah, no, you're right. You're like, oh, I could imagine that. I throw something at that's not me.
No,
that could happen.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, whether it will ever get to a point of being, totally trusted, I don't know. But I think, and it opens up sources for creativity and can inspire you to look perhaps further afield where you haven't considered looking.
Yeah, that's true. So much of what you've done, I could call anyone watching, listening, could say has been very successful. With the maturity perspective you've got here now, how would you describe success?
Oh gosh, how would you describe success? I mean, for me, there are all the obvious benchmarks, being number one as a bestseller, or getting an MBE, or winning awards or whatever. But I think fundamentally, you have to be successful in that you feel that it's a job well done. You think, yeah, I did that, and I actually did that to the best of my ability, and I enjoyed the process. It was a successful endeavor to do, and other people seem to enjoy it and get something out of it too, and that's the sign of success more than the kind of the awards and the accolades.
What have you not done? There's so many things you've done. And I don't know if you've had a chance to think about this. I imagine you probably have, where there's, the book's recently finished, you come up for some air, and then there's something that still drives you, you still want to achieve.
Well, I've kind of chosen a genre that's continually evolving.
Which is stimulating as well, right?
It is very stimulating, but it means the job is never done.
No. But you like that?
I do, because it's always the next thing, and it's going to hopefully keep me gainfully employed for quite a long time, because I never intend to retire. You're a long time
dead,
dead,
that's the serial entrepreneur in you, yeah.
For sure.
And in terms of that giving back piece, we touched on it earlier, and I'm now flipping it back to the kind of younger version of yourself, my girls, aspirational entrepreneurs that look at you as that role model. What advice would you give to someone that's setting out in business? Doesn't have to necessarily be in the wellness and the beauty side of things, but just the journey you've been on, the lessons you've learned. What advice would you give?
I think don't chase success. You have to chase what is driving you. You have to chase what you want to achieve, in the sense of creating a product or making a difference and making that the best it can be. For example, when I was running the beauty company, we were never kind of financially driven. We weren't doing it for the money. We were financially aware, but that wasn't the goal. We wanted to have really happy customers and to make a difference to people's skin. And I think that is the same. It's chasing, making a difference, making an impact. And I think just take it slowly. There is, you mentioned earlier about everything being really quick. And, if my rule, actually, because I get asked to do things and make a quick decision and to do things quickly, and I will always take a breath and say, well, ultimately, if it has to be now, then it has to be no, because I haven't had a chance to think about it. And good decisions are at least slept on, so that you go through that whole, brain processing, which is a very real thing. But also, you need to be able to sense check stuff. That's not to say the instinct isn't right too. I think
Sure.
gut instincts, that's a balance, isn't it, between tapping into your gut instinct, which will instantly tell you if something, you get that visceral feeling if it's right or wrong. But I think ultimately, we do need to make more considered decisions, and also not be in a rush. One of my other mottos is crawl, walk, run, because you have to spend a lot of time crawling on the ground. If you have to build it slow if you're going to build it strong, and be there for the long term. I'm not interested in just quick fixes, just flitting in and out, because what's the point? I prefer permanence and that kind of stability and building strong foundations. And I think that's perhaps something that social media and business school these days doesn't really encourage. It's how quickly can we turn this? Is this going to be a quick hustle? How quickly can we exit? What's the exit strategy? When you're actually reviewing a pitch document, they're telling you what the exit is. It's like, well, hold on a minute, you haven't even created it,
It's invaluable advice, that. And we touched on it earlier, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that role model piece, saying that it takes effort and be prepared to slog this out. And although perhaps not the best advice of, it's going to be long days, not enough sleep and so on. But if you're in that...
measure it, but yes. And
you
have
aware.
To be driven, be aware, and it has to be something that you're completely passionate about.
And be prepared to put the work in, because this whole Instagram, look at my view over Dubai Marina and I'm making loads of money, is it real?
This that I've rented for 3 hours, and then I go back to,
But it's stopping some of the entrepreneurs that are not prepared to put the work in, because they're already feeling like a failure because it's taking too long. But if you've got the purpose behind it and the passion.
Well, it depends what your end objective is, isn't it? What is taking too long? And I think to have a legacy, to be a legacy brand, is something perhaps that we should be encouraging more people to think about. And I think maybe in the UK and in the US, we are encouraged to exit quickly. Whereas if you look in some of the European countries, they tend to be more family-led firms that are thinking about the next generation and passing it down. And that is perhaps something that we need to get back to if we want to have more permanence in our field.
I love that. You just brought up the word legacy, and that's how I wanted to end.
Oh, good.
I've used this term multifaceted, which is how I see you. There's different chapters of your life. They've dovetailed into and a lot of them overlap. But if you had a legacy play that was going to be described in X amount of years' time as what you've done, what you've shaped, what would that look like?
I hope I've made a difference to real women's lives, particularly in later life. I think midlife and later is a very challenging time for women. I think we're marginalised in healthcare, we're underfunded, under-researched, not well understood. Physically, we're not small men. You know, we are chromosomally different, skeletally different, our hormone pathways, our pain pathways, our fat distribution, everything is different. Even my heart is a different shape from yours, you know, which is why so many more women are disadvantaged when they have a heart attack because they're misdiagnosed. So I think to be able to educate and empower older women to stand up for themselves and to understand that being fit, healthy, strong, vital is attractive and confident, boosting, and it's not just about chasing youth and blemish-free skin. I think that would be my amazing legacy if I could achieve that.
I told you I was looking forward to speaking with you, and I've loved it. I don't want it to end. I hope you've enjoyed this because I found
really
it
have.
fascinating.
Thank you.
Liz, thank you.